Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
Since the dawn of the GAA in 1884, the telling of its stories have been just as important as the sports. Through the years, heroes and matches have been immortalised, inspiring generation after generation. But some of its most important stories have also gotten lost or turned into legend. And in this series, we will explore some of the GAA's most fascinating forgotten tales, separating rumour from reality and myth from the truth that is often more amazing than the fiction. I'm Michael Foley.
And I'm Ciaran O'Hara.
So join us for Over the Bar, exploring the histories of the GAA.
Hello folks, and welcome to the latest edition of Over the Bar, the Gaelic Games History Podcast. We're back in Jersey territory, and in our most recent edition of Bite Size, Mick, you flagged that it was potentially the story of two nice jerseys as opposed to one. So the question today is, where does the Sligo jersey?
Yeah, two nice jerseys. You could nearly say three or four. Sligo are quite the fashionistas when it comes to the jersey. Like, they've taken the basic template, the most basic colour palette you could possibly have of black and white, and they've done a lot with that. They really have over the years. But on top of making some lovely, lovely jerseys, it's also sort of been their companion through a series of different escapades. No, escapades is the wrong word. Extreme misfortune, I would say. Some glorious redemption stories. And the jersey is sort of wrapped up in all of that. So some people will be aware from maybe 25 years ago now, 2001, when they came to Croke Park to play Kildare, ostensibly with the white jersey as their jersey, but they left with the black jersey as their jersey. So, in that way, the games had a huge impact on their jersey colour, on their jersey choice. But it's a story, that we can actually go a long way back with. And again, like a lot of these jersey stories already, it gives us a glimpse into what the GAA was like right at the very, very beginning.
Okay, so there's many a slip towards a cut on the lip, as they say. So let's go back to the beginning. Were they always wearing black and white?
Yeah. Well, black and white, maybe not black and white, but black, yeah. The first team that I can find that came out of Sligo, and of course we're talking, it was the time when clubs were county champions and they represented the county, or they had the pick at the very least anyway. And the first team to come out of there were a team called Sligo Emmets from Sligo town, and they were known as the Black and Blues. And in 1888 was the first year of a county championship, a proper county championship in Sligo. 18 clubs affiliated. The county championship draw was made in Collooney, and there was one of the first lineups actually. And it's I'm just going to drop some names around the place here. A double bill, okay, a double bill involving.
If you're going name dropping them, like, is WB8's going to be lining out from one of these sides or something?
Very close, very close. The double bill is played on the land of Sir Henry Gore Booth, who of course is native of Lissadell House, Arctic explorer, hunter, shark fisherman, writer, and father of Countess Markovich.
Well, folks, if you ever want an oblique quiz question now, you can ask, what venue hosted the first double header in Sligo GAA and also hosted Leonard Cohen?
Fantastic. Sligo Emmets and Leonard Cohen joined through the decades by Lissadell House. Brilliant. Anyway, Sligo Emmets and Curry were playing as part of a double bill. Curry played in green and white. and Sligo Emmets were in the Black and Blues, they were called. So they won the game anyway. And the first county final in April 1888 was between the Emmets and Ballintocher. I'm gonna defer to you now as our native Westerner here, because and apologies to any Sligo listeners if my pronunciations mangle any places here. I'm comfortable enough with Colooney, but Ballintocher I'm not comfortable with, but I hope I'm not far off. They played in orange and green, by the way.
I'm glad you mentioned what they played in, because I'm going to, claim the fifth here. And I'm not getting involved in the pronunciation debate.
Come on. They were next door to you, for God's sake. That's like me saying I'm not going to get involved in pronunciations involving Kerry or Tip or somewhere like that. Anyway.
No, we'll take next door to you if you're talking about Enniscrone, Kilglass or Easky. You're pushing too far in county there.
Okay, fair enough. I'll go this alone. Okay, so the first game of the county final was abandoned. Pitch invasions, of course, because literally people were just standing around the sideline. And if there was any bit of a schmozzle, there was always seems a bit of pitch invasion. Fellas got very excited. But Sligo won after a replay. So then there was an attempt in Connacht to create a Connacht championship. And now, again, this is interesting because the first game of the Connacht championship of 1888 was meant to be Galway versus Sligo. Now, the champions of Galway were from Woodford. Now, and the game was, I believe, to be played in Woodford as well, but they could not play the game there. Why? Because there had been a spate of evictions in that area. We are at the height of the land wars here. And obviously, when there's an eviction in an area, that brings in so many people. It affects the community far and wide. And the Woodford footballers said, we just can't go. And eventually, it dragged on so long that Galway just said, look, we're just not going to be able to compete. So Sligo got a bye. On the other side, Mayo strode purposely forward. More specifically, the footballing men of Castlebar strode purposely forward and said, we will play. Who
dares to halt the march of the Mayo men?
Exactly. Well, the Black and Blues, for what it's worth, November the 11th, 1888, is the first Connacht football final. Now, there's Sligo make an attempt to postpone the game, and before everybody starts throwing their eyes to heaven and go, can they not just play the bloody game? The Sligo chairman, P.A. McHugh, had been arrested for nationalist activity. It's no more specific than that. But in the event, they said, look, as I suppose a mark of support, stroke protest, is it, can we postpone the game? And Mayo, the fighting men of Mayo said, no, we're playing the match. Come on, let's get on with it. So Sligo said, fine, we will. Down they went.
In fairness, I can see their point. Like, P.A. McHugh wasn't playing.
Yeah, but a bit of solidarity here, Anyway, let's not even go there. So anyway, they played an hour, Connacht final, 4 points each. And a thriller. And then they played another hour to try and separate. And the final score on that was 5 points each. So there was only another 2 points added over the course of the hour. By this stage, keep in mind, it's the 11th of November. Basically, they ran out of light. So they said, we can't go on any further.
Can I ask a question that arises in my head here now while you're mentioning a Mayo-Sligo clash ending in a draw?
Yes.
Recently, we did an episode on drawn clashes. Was this included in the statistics, pray tell?
I'll be adjusting the list forthwith.
Okay, Sligo just moved up.
This one did get past me, I'll be honest with you. There was no replay, which may have been one of the reasons why it got past me. There was no replay. Because in 1888, because of what's now known as the American invasion, when a large number of hurlers went to America under the auspices of the GAA, and nearly the whole operation nearly bankrupted the organisation. They couldn't run an All-Ireland Championship in 1888 going into 89. So they said, look, we're just not going to play it. But it's lovely. We do have some little remembrances of the 1888 Connacht. Remember the inaugural Connacht final from a man called John J. O'Shea, who was the captain of the Black and Blues, the Sligo Emmets. The original Ciaran, the original Jack O'Shea. Before Jacko, there was Jacko. So Jack O'Shea remembers the Mayo game. He said in an interview, obviously many years ago, he said it was a 6-hour journey to Charlestown from Sligo back then, 28 miles.
What were they travelling on? Elephants?
Well, wagonettes.
Okay.
Wagonettes, which to me sounds like a very small wagon wheel. biscuit, maybe, but a wagonette, like a little wagonette. But apparently,
So effectively, stagecoaches.
Stagecoaches. He said,
But even still, like, I'm sorry, Sligo to Charlestown is not a 6 hour. Did they have no roads at the time?
Well, I tell you what they did have. They had 6 inches of snow on the ground.
Oh, okay.
So there was that. He said they got up, or he remembered getting up early in the morning and going out in the crunch of the snow, and it was very, very thick. And they actually, when they were going along the wagon,
this may actually explain why the scoring was so low too, possibly.
They did all right. 2 hours of football, they managed 10 points
in 6 inches of snow.
6 inches of snow. You know, it reminds me of a good FA Cup game from the 70s or the 80s. They just clear it and they, just sweep off the excess snow and play with an orange football. I'm sure it was the same.
Sideline ball. I can't see the sideline.
I'm sure it was the same in Charlestown. Orange ball, off we go. Anyway, 28 miles, 6 hours. When they were going up hills, the lads had to get off the back of the wagonette and push the carriage up the hills. So, like, he said they barely got there in time for the match. Mayo were about to be given a walkover when they arrived.
This must have been a horrendous homeward trek.
You'd hope that they stayed over in Charlestown, availed themselves of the local hospitality, and made their way home the following day when the snow had thawed. You'd like to think so. But anyway, we now have a black and blue jersey, and again, obviously records are scant, but the one thing we do have, and I must give a very genuine and thankful shout out to Jonathan Davey, who's one of our subscribers, and also a member of our group who updated the Sligo GA history around the time of the GA 125 some years ago. And they did a fantastic job, first of all, in updating it from the 1884 to 1984 version. But also when you read through the book, there's some terrific detail about the early years of Sligo GA and some great photographs. It's a really, really good publication. And thanks to Jonathan for sharing that and for sharing a bunch of other information as well around Sligo jerseys and so on. By 1922, All-Ireland Championship, and this now, when I talked about extreme misfortune and the Sligo jersey and Sligo itself, this is where I mean. They're still wearing what looks certainly black jerseys, and there is footage. They won the Connacht title in 1922, which of course was played in 1923 because of delays with the Civil War and so on. And there is, can you believe, footage of the 1922 All-Ireland football semi-final between Sligo and Tip. And when you look at it, you can look and go, yeah, that looks like black and maybe dark blue shorts or something like that. So they play and they beat Tipperary to make an All-Ireland final. This is fantastic. I mean, I was kind of sitting there going, Sligo made an All-Ireland final?
I know something.
You know something of this?
Yes.
I do too now, but go on.
This I have come across in the past. There is a trend in the 20s of Sligo being done down, is the best way I can describe it.
Absolutely. I mean, Dick, I'll explain what happened now. But I mean, the 1920s could have been completely transformative for Sligo. It could have changed the entire trajectory of Sligo football if it had gone a slightly different way. And if Galway in particular didn't have one particularly intrepid administrator that we have come across before.
It can't be.
May I reintroduce Stephen Jordan to the conversation?
Come on.
For anybody who has not tuned in to our 1925 episode, which we seem to come back to every 3 episodes at the moment, Stephen Jordan was a Galway GA administrator who managed, doff my cap to him for this, he managed to get Galway an All-Ireland football title in the committee room in 1925, swiped it from Mayo, who, to be fair, had played literally one game in 1925 to win an All-Ireland. By the way, how many games did Sligo play in 1925? About 6?
If not more.
Loads, anyway, between draws with Roscommon and whatnot. Anyway, re-enter, stage left, few years earlier, Stephen Jordan again. As I say, Sligo had won the Connacht title, and what a Connacht title it was. They had to beat Roscommon twice. Again, another objection had to be replayed. They beat Mayo, and then they beat Galway by a point in the Connacht final. Went on to play Tip, won that. Brilliant game. Sligo were brilliant in it. So they come home to huge celebrations, bonfires. Everybody's really looking forward to the All-Ireland final, which is going to be against Dublin. And there's real sense that Sligo are going to make the breakthrough. And then Stephen Jordan, from his sleeve, produces a card.
We have to, at some point, Michael, introduce an award section. And we will be awarding for the most inventive strokes the Stephen Jordan Award.
Oh, the Stephen Jordan Award for the most inventive administrative stroke, for sure. In this case, Galway objected to Sligo's Connacht title on a bunch of technicalities. Now, it's the kind of stuff that all they're trying to, you could tell, all they're trying to do is muddy the water to try and get something, maybe one of these will get over the lines. So, they objected to the fact that Sligo did not submit a team list 5 days before the game. There was no official notice to either team of the Connacht final being played. They objected to some scores in the game. They objected to the conduct of the Sligo players, whatever that means, and to the illegality of one Sligo player. They threw all these into the pot, right, for the Connacht Council, kind of to blind them with things to think about. Sligo on the other side were like, this is insane. Like, please, like, give us this opportunity. Like, do not proceed with these ridiculous objections. And Stephen Jordan said, lads, let's chill. Like, come on, calm down. It's not like we're trying to take the game off ye or the trophy off ye. I'm going to do that in a couple of years to Mayo. But for now, all I want to do is get a replay of the Connacht final.
Love GAA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
The Connacht Council were looking at this going, well, did Galway submit a team sheet? And Stephen Jordan said, no, we did not. Actually, we did not. Which means both teams did not submit a team sheet. And in that particularly wonderful way.
Right about that time, if I was the Mayo or Roscommon delegates, I'd have been going, right, out with the pair of you.
Yeah, up, hands up. And in that peculiar way of GA administrative loopholes and just stuff, mad stuff that happens in committee rooms. The Connacht Council said, well, neither of you submitted team sheets. We're going to have to replay that game. Sligo are absolutely devastated, as you can imagine. The game is set for Castlereagh the following weekend. Sligo immediately object to the Connacht Council. Connacht Council go, lads, no dice, like, we're going to have to go ahead with this. It goes so badly. The Sligo players are going, I don't know will we even play this. Their county chairman of 15-year standing, Hugh O'Donnell, resigns in protest. But the replay, interestingly, Ciaran, and one of the big things about Sligo football in general is, certainly up to 2001, was the number of times they had not played in Croke Park. The fact that they had gone so long without playing in Croke Park. Well, this Connacht final was switched to Croke Park in 1923. The 1922 Connacht football final was played in Croke Park at the end of 1923.
How did we not have that stat when Mayo Galway was moved there a few years ago?
It's just one of these things that gets lost, isn't it? So they played the game. Unfortunately, on top of everything else, Sligo were missing 3 of their best players. Very cranky game. Very just poor stuff. And Galway won. And by the way, it being the season that it was, Tip now said, hang on a minute. You mean we beat a team that had broken the rules? I mean, surely that means we should now play Galway. And the GAA just, I could, as a body, as a collective body, just smacked their hand against their forehead and went,
gasped.
Just shut up, Tip. Just shut up. Galway are playing Dublin in the All-Ireland final. Can we just play this thing? And Dublin won 6 points to 4. It's devastating. And the black jersey did not get its big day in Croke Park, at least not until 1926, when they played Laois in a league semi-final, which they also won. And what happened there? Laois objected because one of the Sligo players' names was incorrectly spelled on the team list. They have big problems with team lists. But either way, Central Council then order a replay, which Laois win. I mean, Sligo then object after that game to a Laois player who they said was illegal, had played for Roscommon and Longford. That was thrown out, and all the Connacht delegates at the meeting all walk out. But if you think about it now, Sligo have made an All-Ireland final that they don't get to play, and a league final that they don't get to play in the space of a couple of years.
This could have been so formative for Sligo GAA. They could have won an All-Ireland and a league title in the 20s, and it could have been the dominant sport in the county for the next century. But it doesn't surprise me that there would be confusion around certain player eligibility issues, because I did encounter, for last week's episode, a Sligo player from Curry who lined out for Mayo and Sligo in the same calendar year, but different championships.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to say on the same day.
No,
in the same match.
We're talking literally within the same number of weeks. He was playing in, for example, the 21 championship for Mayo and the 22 championship for Sligo. And I wonder, is that the player that Stephen Jordan hung his objection upon?
Oh, it's almost certainly, I'd say. But you get a lot of this. I mean, people might be listening on, how did they get away with this stuff? But you got to remember, communication is very scant. The organisation of these competitions is very much on the hoof at this period. You could be, Mayo, Sligo, those areas are quite close to each other, but you could easily have a guy play for Dublin who played for Waterford or someone like that early in the year in hurling or football or something like that, and then turn out for Dublin, and no one's the wiser until it actually matters. So the 1920s are going well, but not well for Sligo.
Or for anyone in Connacht for that.
Well, it's a bit of a...
Well, actually, no, 1925 works out very well for Galway.
It's brilliant. It's been really good for Galway. They've won a Connacht title that they probably shouldn't get, and an All-Ireland title that Mayo definitely have a claim to at least share.
Galwegians, where is the Stephen Jordan statue?
I mean, it just beggars belief. 1928, Sligo do win a Connacht title wearing the black jersey, which is fantastic. But even then, there's a bit of misfortune. Where do you think their All-Ireland semi-final against Cavan would normally be in this scenario?
Is Brewster Park in existence yet?
You're overthinking it. It should be Croke Park, right? Just All-Ireland semi-final would be in Croke Park. It was in Breffni Park in Cavan. They had to go to Cavan to play Cavan. Why? Don't know. Information, again, scant. But even, when they do have their next opportunity to win and get through to an All-Ireland final, they have to go into the belly of the beast, and they don't win. And that is effectively the end of Sligo and Croke Park until the mid-70s. But the jersey, Ciaran, of course, we're here to talk about jerseys. It remains black for years. If you go to, they win an All-Ireland junior title, all right, with a jersey that looks like it might be dark green or something like that. It's very hard to tell in the black and white. It's definitely a dark jersey. But then it starts to get a bit funky. In the 40s, they play a league quarter-final against Kerry wearing a white jersey with a black hoop. Very nice. That persists through the 50s and the 60s. They have this kind of white jersey with, I think it's navy, actually. It might be a navy. A little bit like what Waterford would have been wearing at the period. By the mid-60s, they're back to the white with the black hoop, and they continue on with that until the early 70s when the black jersey comes back again for a little spell. But then, of course, famously, they win their Connacht title in 1975, wearing those fantastic white jerseys with the 3 stripes down the side, and they go on. They play Kerry in All-Ireland semi-finals, their first time back in Croke Park since those heady days of the 1920s. And then they disappear again. But there is one interesting one. They had one in the late 80s, early 90s, 89, 1990, with 2 black hoops on the white. I mention all this just to give an example of, they really did do different stuff with the jersey, and it all looks pretty good. I have to say, the white with the black hoop is really funky. I really like that one. But then I like Derry with the white and the red band too, so maybe I've got a bit of a thing for those kind of jerseys.
Right, so, and then you did mention things that we would have been more conscious of. So, in the late 80s, early 90s, if we were conscious of Sligo at all, it was certain players having standout days when they would come up against Leitrim. And, Leitrim at the time, I think were under, was it PJ Carroll? Was PJ Carroll his name?
PJ Carroll was in charge. And of course, John O'Mahony.
Yeah. So Leitrim were having an up time. And then that seemed to, rising tide and all that. By the mid to late 90s, we see Sligo really emergent. And it's safe to say they've been at a comparable standard ever since. They've won kind of titles since. They've had huge days in Croke Park, as you'll be talking about now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where it all changes. I mean, if you think about it, I suppose roughly the last 30 years has surely been the most consistently successful and definitely the most consistently competitive period for Sligo, at all sorts of different levels. Now, you mentioned the mid-90s, kind of post-Leitrim. You're absolutely right. Sligo slot into that gap, which keeps Connacht and has kept Connacht really interesting over many years. Okay, Leitrim have had major issues, really, I suppose you could say, in the last 10 years, but you could always say, of the four, Mayo, Galway, Roscommon, Sligo, you'd usually have three at least that are competitive with each other, and on a good year you'll have four. And Sligo have been very much part of that. If you go back to the period just before the turn of the century, 97 to 2000 was really when we saw them coming. So 97, they lose a Connacht final to Mayo. Of course, Mayo go on to an All-Ireland final that year. In 98, they take Roscommon to a replay in the Connacht Championship. That is the year that Roscommon take Galway to a replay in the Connacht final, and Galway go on to win the All-Ireland. And in 1999, they take the defending All-Ireland champions to a replay, which is fantastic, right? So 2000, and I remember this one well. Mickey Moran was in charge of them. Mickey Moran, of course, who was there with Eamon Coleman when Derry won in 93. And he's back now over this period as Sligo manager. So in 2000, there was huge hype about could Sligo turn Galway over in 2000. They had missed the league semi-finals that year by 0.01 of a point on scoring average.
League semi-finals, which, if I'm not mistaken, Galway, Mayo and Roscommon featured in, is that correct?
Following year. It's the following year. They don't make the semi-finals in 2000 by that 0.01 of a point. So they're that close to the big guys. So going in against Galway, it's tremendous. But unfortunately, as sometimes happens in these scenarios, they get absolutely steamrollered. They just couldn't maintain that momentum to get
too much expectation.
Too much expectation. What had been happening in their games, and it continues to happen a little bit even into the next year, is that they were fading out badly. They would start very well and then they would fade out. But 2001 is such a pivotal year in the history of the GAA, particularly in Gaelic football, for reasons that people probably know already. It's the introduction of a qualifier system where everybody will get a second game. Everybody will play at least two games. And teams like Sligo, and particularly Sligo in 2001, benefit hugely from this change, massively from this change. In 2001, you can see the intent from the beginning. So in February of that year, there was a call out from Sligo County Board to every club. There's 28 clubs in Sligo at this time. If they could possibly donate £2,500 to fund the county teams, not just the senior footballers, but across the board, hurling as well. Intercounty costs the previous year had spiralled, Ciaran, to £150,000 in Sligo. This is shocking stuff at the time.
We have had some amount of inflation in the GAA, is all I can say.
There's been a hell of a jump, hasn't there? £150,000. And this has triggered the county board to go, well, look, we need specific donations now to cover this. So 2001, the season continues on. Obviously, you have a bit of the league before Christmas, and after Christmas, coming into the spring, Sligo are right in the mix. As you mentioned, they do make the league semi-finals this time. In 2000, they lost their last league game to Clare. That's what knocked them out of the league semi-finals in 2000. In 2001, they also lose their last league game to Clare, but they've done enough already to make a league semi-final. 4 Connacht counties in it. They play Galway in the pouring rain in the Hyde, and they lose. It starts well, but again, they fade out 12 to 11 points, they lose. It's their first National League semi-final since 1974, which is, again, back in that era when they won their last Connacht title. So this is where they are. In the Connacht Championship that year, they play Mayo. They only lose by a point. Now, in the olden days, that would be the end of that, and we'd all be going away going, well, 2002 maybe, but how long can they keep going? Now, they have the beautiful benefit of being able to put things right. But the big question in 2001, Ciaran, of course, was How will teams react to a second game having got knocked out of the provincial championships? That's always the big question. In Sligo's case, they take the week off. They come back on the Friday night under Peter Ford, by the way, the former Mayo player, and he is cracking the whip in a big way with this group, and he's getting a great response from them. They take the week off. They come back on the Friday night. They play Carlow in the round 2 qualifiers, and they win by 7 points. That's a good response.
Back in the saddle.
Back in the saddle, off we go. And could it be any better? It doesn't actually matter who they draw. They draw Kildare in round 3, but they draw them to play in Croke Park.
Okay. And this is when we become familiar with the story of the change in jersey colour.
Yeah, this is when the jersey comes in. So it's their first time in Croke Park, as I said, since 1975. So this is completely alien to them. They're also going to be playing completely alien jerseys. They haven't played in black since the early 70s. Obviously, Kildare in all white. So to acclimatise themselves to the place, they go up the Friday night before. It's a Saturday match. So they're up there the Friday evening before. They go in, they walk around. And if you remember, 2001 was the year that the Hogan Stand had been demolished.
That's
so
right.
All you have is the Old Hill, the Cusack Stand, and the Canal End. So they're in this very strange version of Croke Park, but they haven't been there in so long. You know, they're looking at the pitch, the contours of the pitch, this huge stand, the size of the dressing room blows them away. Some of the lads apparently weren't even sure where Croke Park was in Dublin going up. They'd never been there before at all. But they had a good idea where it was. Well, they wouldn't forget where it was when they came out, because some of them had actually driven up to Jones's Road and around and parked around the place, and they went back to their cars to find some of them had been burgled. So, welcome to hell. So the night before, they got their rest, came back the following day. Kildare were on the road.
I can picture this now in my head. They're coming out of the dressing room. The guy that does the music in Croke Park has done Let's Dance for Kildare. And out comes Sligo to AC/DC, back in black.
Oh, beautiful. If only they had that kind of imagination. I tell you who did have that kind of imagination was a few shopkeepers in Ballina who, because they knew the traffic would be coming their way, put up 1975 prices in their shops to amuse, and hopefully, I hope the Sligo fans stopped and absolutely rinsed them. But anyway,
99 for 1 cent, 1 penny.
Yeah, brilliant.
Love GEA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordia Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.
The Kildare, 3 weeks on the road. This was their third game in 3 weeks, which again was a very odd thing in 2001. They were also starting to gather injuries in that way Kildare did sometimes. Remember before the 98 All-Ireland final, they picked up a ton of injuries just at the wrong time. Niall Buckley, their great midfielder, had pulled a hamstring on the Tuesday night. Ken Doyle, their cornerback brother of Johnny Doyle, pulled a muscle in his back getting out of bed on the Saturday morning. Glenn Ryan was missing, their great centre-back. So... And they were coming off the back, and this was a game I was at, and it's one of those football matches that you go to and you'll never forget. Kildare, yeah, you know the one. Kildare v Donegal in Newbridge qualifier. It was one of those matches, Ciaran, I think it's fair to say, that if there was any doubt or question mark about how the qualifiers would bed in as a concept, a game like Kildare-Donegal blew that out of the water. It ended 16-15. Newbridge was just hopping. The ground was packed. Kildare-Donegal must have been the first time they ever played in championship, and it's so novel and so different and so brilliant. And my abiding memory from that night is finishing off my report up in the old press box in Newbridge, and Mick O'Dwyer was just to the right of the press box giving a radio interview to somebody, and the stand below him, there must have been 200 people just standing on the steps below, or standing around the seats and everything below him, fanned out. And it really looked like what the Sermon on the Mount must have looked and felt like. Just the faithful, absolutely agog at this man and what he had to say.
They were fanatic at that time.
It was magic, absolutely magic. And I mean, as much as the result that Sligo get is fantastic, you know, that it happened to Kildare in a way was almost a shame, because Kildare brought so much to that era. But anyhow, the game begins. Sligo are playing well. They're 3 down, though, with 20 minutes to go, and they're down to 14 men very early on. So, and by the way, you talked about great Sligo players playing well, you know, in isolated games. Maybe their greatest player at that era, Paul Taylor, was missing for the Kildare game. So they really were up against it in many ways, notwithstanding all the difficulties Kildare were having. 3 up with 20 minutes left, Kildare were. Sligo score 6 points in 13 minutes unanswered. Johnny Doyle and Eddie McCormick get a couple of points back for Kildare. So going into injury time, they're a point up and Kildare are battering them. But they can't get the scores they need. And Sligo win a very, very famous victory. And I remember, again...
And the DJ plays, you keep on knocking, but you can't come in.
I remember I think the first game that day was Galway versus Armagh. And Galway beat Armagh, of course, on their way to winning an All-Ireland title. And I was covering that match, and I remember coming up out of the dugout, or coming up the steps of the queue, up from underneath the Cusack stand where the dressing rooms were, and getting to stand near the Sligo dugout for the rest of the second game towards the very end. And again, what a magic experience. What an absolutely incredible experience to see this county that had never had a day like this in Croke Park, at least not till they had beaten Tipperary, not since they'd beaten Tipperary in 1923. Had anything like this before. And the outpouring of joy was enormous. And the camaraderie among the Connacht supporters that day was brilliant. Galway, actually, there was an arrangement between Peter Ford and his old Mayo manager, John O'Mahony, that if Galway had won the game, they were in touch all week, like kind of, you know, Ford presumably getting advice from Jono about dealing with Croke Park and the experience. But if Galway had won the game against Armagh, they were to provide a guard of honour for the Sligo players. No, it just didn't happen.
In order to atone for the sins of Stephen Jordan.
Absolutely. Mea culpa, mea culpa, yeah. They're all there beating their breasts as the Sligo lads are now. They're really sorry about that. Anyway, as it turned out, the Galway lads couldn't get out, but Jono did visit the dressing room before the game. So this is, you know, it's a wonderful day for the West. It's a great, great day for the West. And Sligo go on. And of course, they're in the round 4 now. And who did they draw, Ciaran?
Well, go on, Michael.
Well, I mean, who would you like, if you were in their position?
Well, if I was in their position where I'm back in black after so long, I'd be pretty keen to play another team in white, I have to say.
Well, they didn't get that dream come true, but they got what should have been the 1922 All-Ireland football final. They got the dubs in 2001. Again, little bit is, you know, kind of squaring the circle there in some way. By the way, that no one realised at the time, but we know now that we were squaring a circle. Came back, they were told, the GA told them, lads, back into white now because that's your registered jersey. They went, well, the county board went, we're after buying a load of black gear though. I think what they meant was, the players have said, we're not changing. We've just won a match in Croke Park. We're sticking with the black. They got fined, Ciaran. Would you like to guess how much they got fined for this appalling offence?
The price of a 1975-99.
Look, not quite. I thought you were going to say a 1979 car brand of some sort, because it wouldn't have been far off that. 250 quid. I think I'd
take the fine if I was the board. Yeah.
I'd take a whip around in the dressing room recovered. Yeah. Anyway, so
by the way, we're wearing purple next week. na.
So they go out again, and I mean, imagine this. It's now the headline act is on a double bill. So you've got Cork Galway and you've got Dublin Sligo, but it's Dublin Sligo is the headline. And there's 60-odd thousand people in Croke Park. It's magic stuff. And Sligo acquit themselves really well, particularly in the first half. They're only a point behind at half time. But unfortunately, and maybe in a style that they had become too accustomed to, particularly in Connacht, when they played the likes of Galway Mayo, they fade out in the second half and they end up losing 3-17 to 12 points. Dublin go on to play Kerry and Thurles after that, and you got Maurice Fitz's point and all those magic-y things that happen. But Sligo have their magic moment as well. And I mean,
and they're a huge factor in why at the end of that year the qualifiers were deemed to be such a success. We're talking Sligo All-Star nominations that year.
Exactly. There are a handful of teams that do so well in that. Westmeath, I don't mean to bring it up, Ciaran, but I will. Westmeath beating Mayo was another one at the time.
Yes.
That was very significant. There he is. He's not happy with that.
Just broke the dream treble header for Jono to be able to go into other dressing rooms. Yeah.
It did. She must have loved going into those dressing rooms. But anyway, so Sligo were huge. A huge story at the time, and a huge reason, as you say, why the qualifiers were deemed to be a success. And they went on. Like, they lose the Connacht final the following year only by a goal, and they come back to Croke Park, Ciaran, and they get their victory. They beat Tyrone.
And I was at that game.
What was that like?
Oh, that was cracking atmosphere because they really were underdogs. I was with it with a few Sligo fans, friends of mine. And like, it's the closest thing I've seen to that kind of euphoria since was in a gym in Pyongyang when Kim Jong-un came in.
Go on. This is a whole other podcast episode. You were in a gym with Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang.
Yeah, look, that's... Go and watch Big Bang in Pyongyang and you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, God. Oh, that's
in any event...
Is that Dennis Rodman goes to North Korea to play some basketball?
Yes.
You were involved in that?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
But in any event, that is the kind of euphoric response that Sligo fans had to beating another team in white while they were in black.
It's fantastic. We have now gone from Lissadell House to Leonard Cohen, to the first Sligo County Championship, to Sligo beating Tyrone 2002, to Kim Jong-un in a gym in Pyongyang. This is quite the episode. Anyway, they beat Tyrone. And the game that I remember from that year is they play Armagh. They take Armagh, who again were going on to their All-Ireland title, and they bring them to a fantastic replay. It's a brilliant replay. I think the replay was in Navan, if I remember rightly, and it was just a brilliant summer that was for football in general. And Sligo were right at the heart of it. So that more or less solidified that we're going back to black. And for me, I always thought growing up that white was their origin colour, if you like, because that was just the colour that you saw Sligo wearing. But obviously, we know that it's black. Black was always the origin colour. And they kept with that up. They changed briefly in 2019, 2020. They went to white. And they had the Land of Heart's Desire printed on the collar, on the back of the collar. But actually, they even still kept a bit of black across the shoulder. So it was never fully gone. But they have reverted since.
And they've had some huge moments in black since then. Like, we've seen Connacht titles. They were really at the top table. That's what the qualifiers did for them. It allowed them to train deep into a couple of seasons to achieve the type of conditioning that the teams they were competing against had, to build gradually, to win that 2007 Connacht, to win another. They really were a feature of the senior football championships for a number of years from that point onwards. And
as well as that, for a county that that were kind of measured by the number of times they'd played in Croke Park up to 2001, since 2001, not including the Kildare game, they've played there 6 times. They've won one, they've drawn one, and they've lost the rest. But it's been Tailteann Cup semi-finals the last couple of years. They played Cork in an All-Ireland quarter-final in 2007 there, So, I mean, when you look at the history of the jersey, for me, it opened up the reality that Sligo's history tells you that they have a depth, not just of tradition, but an actual depth of player and quality that they can do very well when all the things are going in the right direction for them, and when they get that opportunity. And they have been very, very misfortunate at times over the years that, a little procedural tweak here, an argument won in a boardroom there, and their history and their reality, their current situation could be very different.
And they may be, we'll know more when we've been through this entire trawl of jerseys, but they may be the ones that have longest been in the defined colour of black, because I don't imagine that Castlebar Mitchells lined out in that Connacht final against them in the colours of Ballina Stephenites.
Highly unlikely. And so far, I mean, so they are the first county we've come across that were wearing what we would recognise now as their county colours at the very beginning. So that's a really good question. Yeah, we'll find out as we go along.
So, O'Neill's, time to add a little blue to the Sligo jerseys there.
Blue shorts, lads. Blue shorts. That's the way to go.
Yeah. Another fascinating trawl, Michael. Really enjoyed that. Didn't imagine that my esteemed neighbours had such pedigree. And indeed they do. That's where I leave it. Not going any further for them.
You're not going to say any more nice things about them. You've already exceeded your quota for the
they
year.
always take it as, we're patronising them or something.
Well, we
have the deepest respect for Sligo, let me tell you.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. Go on.
In any event, if you are a member of our Cordial Club, we have another special story for you this week. And it's around an Irish Olympic team that may have been more ill-prepared than the Irish team in Saipan. And there is some deep GA connections. And actually let's just throw it out there. There's some basketball connections. So we're getting back to Dennis Rodman territory. Folks.
Yeah, we are. It's all come around. This is mental. This is absolutely mental.
We're so glad that you joined us again for this one. If you do want to vote for us to do a Jersey episode, put it in the comments. But more particularly, keep an eye on Michael Foley's Twitter account, because he puts up these polls where he has counties competing, like a World Cup of jerseys for GAA.
Sligo beat Kerry for this one. Like, what a win.
There
75 upturned. Brilliant.
There we go. So, keep an eye on Mick's tweet machine if you'd like to vote on our next Jersey episode, which I have no doubt, because he has a big board in his dungeon. What's the next contest actually going to be, Michael?
Funny enough, actually, the next one up actually includes a team we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago. It's Kildare versus Limerick. The Whites versus the Greens.
So, folks, if you want to vote on that one, all you have to do is go and find Mick on the tweet machine, as Vincent Brown used to call it. Apt when we're talking about a Limerick reference. Don't forget, wherever you are listening, to like, rate, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We do appreciate you doing that. We appreciate the comments when you send them to us. Most of all, we appreciate you listening. So until next time, one final reminder that Bite Size will be in your inbox on Saturday morning. Slán Tamil.
Bye-bye.
Love GEA history? Then you love going deeper with Over the Bar's Cordial Club membership. For just €5 a month, you'll get exclusive member-only episodes and series, early ad-free access to the main podcast, plus detailed show notes, a newsletter, and the chance to have your questions answered. Join Michael Foley and Ciaran O'Hara as they uncover the stories, the legends, and the questions that shaped our games. Don't just listen, be part of the club. Join now at overthebar.club.